Welcome back to the Michigan Golfer. We're talking with Chuck Kocsis and Jack Beery, the Dean of American Golfer. Chuck, 1931, I believe it was, you played Tommy Armour in a playoff. And Jack, as you well know, Chuck played against some super players. You beat Tommy Armour for the Michigan Open in a playoff. Tell us about that.
Well, it's kind of a long story in a way, but I had finished a round ahead of him, and he holed about a 10 or 12 foot putt on the last hole to tie me. Now, the next day, they decided, the newspapers asked us if we would play at 10 o'clock instead of at 1 o'clock like they normally do. They wanted to make the story with the first edition of the paper. And I agreed, and Armour agreed. But I get out there the next morning at 10 o'clock, and he doesn't show up. He shows up after 11 o'clock. And Maury Wells was the pro there and the referee, and I was a little upset and unhappy with him because he wasn't too friendly anyway. And I told Maury that he should be disqualified. He shouldn't be allowed to play. They wouldn't do it to me.
This guy is the reigning British Open champion at the time.
I wanted to make him mad at me to start with.
You succeeded.
And we played, and I don't recall, there's another story, and I think it did happen before. I better tell that story first. He was a pro at Tam O'Shanter, and Al Wallace was a member of Tam O'Shanter, a fellow that I played with a number of times, and they had a big stag day at Tam, and Hank Roberts was in the foursome, and he invited me to caddy for him because Armour was going to play, and Al Wallace, and I forget, Tony Miola was the other fellow. But Tony Miola didn't show up, and I don't know whether it was a put-up deal or not with Hank Roberts, but
Guess who?
Armour was kind of disgusted because they only had a threesome now. They couldn't get another guy. So Hank says, Tommy, don't worry about it. He said, Chuck will play out of my bag, and he says, I'll give you a $50 Nassau against him. And Armour says, how many strokes do I have to give him? He said, every stroke you give me, you get an extra $50 Nassau. So Armour says, I'll give him 3 strokes. And Hank says, you think you can beat him with 3 strokes? I said, he can't beat me with 3 strokes anytime. But I'm not a cocky guy as a rule. I did it on purpose to make him mad at me. I won again. So we teed off, and I'm 2 up on him right from the start almost, all the way to the 16th hole. And the 16th hole, well, first of all, I want to tell you that I got the cramps and I was kind of sick. I only weighed about 135 pounds. And at the 9th hole, I said to Maury, I got to go in the locker room. So I went in on purpose and made him, I didn't tell you about the other one. When he was late, my brother said to me, when he shows up, go in the locker room, make him wait 30 minutes. So I did. And now I go in the locker room at 9, and he thinks I'm doing this on purpose. And I come out, and I've held him up all the way around. He's shooting out a turn and everything, which is, and I told Maury he should be penalized for shooting out a turn. And on the 16th hole, I hit it on the green, and he was inside of me, but he putted first. And I was 2 up. And I 3-putted, but it wasn't too far away from the hole. I was just a little upset about the thing. But anyway, we have the last 2 holes, and I beat him. He walked off the green, never shook hands, never congratulated me or anything, just went away. And I said that I just couldn't understand it. The story was that he went to Oxford to school. I said, any guy went to Oxford with that kind of an attitude.
That was a highlight of your early career, and then you kept on going. And
another story, John Walter had printed a story in Golf World 18 years later. Golf World came out in 51, this was in 31, this is something like that. And anyway, John Walter printed the story about me beating Armour in Golf World. And my wife and I are at a party at Red Run. We get home at 2:30 in the morning, and the phone rings. And it was Armour, and I recognized his voice right away, and I said, what are you calling me at 2:30 in the morning for? He said, I'm gonna sue you. I said, what for? He said, for that story in Golf World. Well, I said, why didn't you sue me in 1931 when I beat you? I said, I didn't write the story, why don't you sue the guy that wrote the story? So I said, don't call me at 2:30 in the morning, and I slammed the phone down. Well, John Walter called me in the morning, and he said, you get a phone call last night? And I said, yeah. And I said, I guess you did too. I said, what did you tell him? Well, I shouldn't say this, but John said that he skipped Scotland. He had a court case, and he skipped Scotland and came to this country, which I didn't know about it. And I won't tell you the reason, but anyway, he shut up. We never heard from him again. But in I had a condominium right close to Boca Raton where he was giving lessons. And I had a good friend, Bob Craig from Howell, Michigan, that I was doing business with, and he had a place down there too. And I went down there to play golf with him sometimes. And one day he said to me, he said, Armour is giving junior lessons. He said, why don't you go over to the club and say hello to Armour? I said, well, Bob, it won't do much good, but I said, I'll try. So I go over to the club, and I said, the girl, is Mr. Armour in? She said, yes, he's in his office, just walk in. I didn't walk in, I knocked on the door, and he said, come in. He's sitting at the desk, and when I walked in, he looked at me, and he put his head down. Never said a word, never said hello, nothing. So I said to him that Bob suggested I stop and say hello, that he was giving junior lessons. But I said, I see you're just as miserable as ever, and I turned around and I slammed the door as hard as I could. That's the last
What a warm relationship.
You want to tell us about some of the other golfers that you had?
That's the last time I saw him. Then I had another pretty good story, a similar type of thing. We played the National Amateur at Pebble Beach in 1951, I think it was, and it was in the evening, and I came out of the locker room ready to go to the motel and that, and one of my friends, John Levinson, that I got acquainted with in school, he was a good golfer. In fact, I think I played him in the National Intercollegiate Tournament, and he's on a green with 4 fellas putting, and Bob Toski is one of them. I had never met Bob Toski, and John said to me, he said, Chuck, why don't you get in the game? You can make some money. They're putting the longest putt on the green, and the guy, everyone you're nearest to, had to pay you $1. And Bob Toski spoke up, and he says, oh, he won't play. He's afraid he may lose $2. Well, I didn't say anything. I didn't know Bob anyway. I'd never met him. I didn't even know who he was. Well, just about that time, the locker boy came out, and he said, John, he said, Mr. Levinson, you have a phone call. So John come over and give me his ball and club. He said, get in the game till I come out. So I get in the game, and I play about 20 minutes or so, and I won a few dollars, and when John came out, I gave him his putter back. Toski says, oh, he said, you won a couple of bucks, eh? So you're quitting. And I said, no, you little so-and-so. I said, anytime you want to play for money, putting or playing, I said, just let me know. Well, that was it. I left. Gee, the next spring, I'm invited to the Masters, and I'm paired with Toski the first round. And he gets up in front of all the gallery on the first tee, and he says, the committee made a mistake pairing me with an amateur. He said, they shouldn't even be allowed to play in a tournament. He said, I should be playing with Sam Snead or Ben Hogan or someone, see? I said, what a guy. So I'm talking to Ed Rankin, who was the Hagen representative from Detroit at the time, and he said, hey, Bob, come here. So when he walked over, I walked away. Well, then Rankin and his 2 friends bet Toski $600 that I would beat him. So I shot 73, and I think he shot 83 or something, 78 or something. And then Rankin told me when I got home, they give him another bet that I would beat him in the tournament. And that year, I was low amateur, and I beat the whole field the last 2 rounds. So he lost again.
Well, it sounds like you didn't mind taking on a little financial challenge from time to time, but you, other than 1 year as a pro, you played all your golf as an amateur. Why didn't you make a living out
I made more money at that time than all those pros.
Wasn't much money into that
There
in
was
those
no,
days, was
you
it?
win a tournament those days, you didn't get anything, really. I told you that I turned pro only for one reason. I had no desire to be in a pro, but I was gonna take a vacation after I quit my job at Chrysler. So I went out west to California and I played golf. I played in some of the tour events, and I could deduct my expenses as a pro.
Now, you played with some pretty famous folks out there too, didn't you? Bob
I
Hope,
played
Crosby?
with a lot of people.
What
Well,
was,
I used to, before that, in 1937, I had gone to California to play in the Western Amateur Tournament at Los Angeles Country Club. And they had, I don't remember, was Fred Waring or who it was, had a big dance band out there. It was on the radio all the time. And Bob Hope used to go there and tell a few stories, and Bing Crosby would sing a few songs. And we went there because they had girls you could dance with. So I met Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. And then I went, after the tournament, I stayed a little longer, and I went to, I can't remember the name of the course where Bob Hope and Bing Crosby belonged. And I went to the pro and I said I wanted to play the golf course. And I said, I'm alone, I'd like to play with someone. He said, I got a good twosome for you. He had Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. So
Wow.
I played 9 holes with him.
Oh,
It was nice.